Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. Welcome to another episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. Certainly glad you're here. This is Bob Van Buren. I'm here every week with a new guest and a new topic. So glad you're all here. Just a reminder, the show is broadcast live every Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock Central and 8 o'clock Eastern. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button because, as I said last week, this show may be expanding a little bit more. There may be more episodes during the week with special interest, maybe even some musical entertainment. So don't want to miss that. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Hope everybody's had a great week so far. I've actually had a better week than I was last week. If you tuned in to last week's show, you'll remember that I couldn't hardly talk and I was really coughing a lot. Turns out I had an upper respiratory infection. I think I might have mentioned that last time, but went to urgent care, got some antibiotics, and just something to help me sleep at night. So I think I'm coming out of it. I think I'm actually going to live now. So I don't want to speak too soon, right? Don't want to push my luck. So hope you all are well and not going through any kind of sickness or anything like that. So it's been a better week for me, personally. So anyway, again, welcome you all to the Van Buren Variety Show. Tonight, we've got a very, very great topic that I think everybody, counting yours truly, could really benefit from. We are all sometimes very stressed out people, aren't we? I mean, whether it be your job, whether it be a family issue, whether it be other kind of business, neighbors, whatever. We all have stress and we have a lot of anxiety. And sometimes, we play that stuff over and over. If we've ever made a mistake in our lives, if you're like me, we'll play that over and over. It's that self-guilt that just drives me crazy. And so how do we, using the term, clean out our life's closet? Well, we're going to have a guest tonight that's going to tell us exactly how to do that. In fact, she's written a really, really good book about it. I've already started reading this book. And let me bring that up really quick before I bring her on. This is the book that she has written. It's called Clean Out Your Life Closet. And believe you me, that book could be about me because I definitely need to put some stuff in the past, leave it in the past, put it in the past where it belongs, and just, live one day at a time and stress-free. So without further ado, let's bring our special guest on tonight. Ladies and gentlemen,
Hey, Bob.
How you doing, Corbie? This is Corbie Mitleid. She's the writer of this book that I just told you about, Clean Out Your Life's Closet. And I'm looking forward to hear what she's got to say. Corbie, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show. I'm glad you're here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for asking me, Bob.
Okay, let's just jump right in. We see a lot of, when we go to a bookstore, you see a lot of self-help books. They're everywhere you look. So
yes, they are.
Why do you think people buy so many self-help books in the first place?
Because we're convinced we don't know enough and we have to ask the experts. It's how we're told. You see a medical commercial and there's that gurney, the empty gurney following you and getting stuck in the door. You may have a heart attack coming and you don't know it. You had better tell your doctor that you want this because the doctor knows and you don't. Or it's the two people with laundry detergent and one of them, I'm so stupid, I don't know how to clean my laundry. And then they ask the laundry expert. The whole point is we're our own best experts. But when we go to the bookstore, we see the book with the great sexy title and the good cover. We flip a few pages and we say, maybe. And then we get it home and start reading. And it's like, what are you talking about? I have to do yoga every morning at 4 a.m. and I can't eat food with leptin in it. I am a preschool teacher in Milwaukee with 2 kids of my own. I ain't doing that. So the way I wrote the book is with you. I tell you some of the dumb things I did. Might give you a story about a client, and I make suggestions. But the key is this. At the end of each chapter, you've got your adventure pages. See?
Okay. Yes, sir.
And they ask questions that you can't just catch from the book. For instance, of the 4 kinds of people in this chapter, which are you, what does being that kind of a person bring to your life? Which of the 4 kinds of people do you like to have in your life and why? So there's
I like
no
that.
person A is the right one because we're all different. So by the end of the book, if you read it and you do all the adventure pages, the questions, you will have your own personal manual, and you could give it to your best bud at the same time as you buy yours. If they do all the answers, their book will be different, specifically for them. I trust my readers,
I like that.
and I teach them to trust themselves.
So it's almost like you wrote it in a way. You kind of wrote it for the person reading it. It's their personal journey. Is that if I can say
Yes,
that?
exactly right. Exactly right. So they don't have to worry if they don't do everything in my book because I don't expect them to. It's going to fit their personal life experiences.
And that probably brings up to our next question. A lot of people that buy other self-help books. In fact, I've read part of your book, and you're talking about how most people is buy a self-help book and it gets tossed in the family library or something. So
Right.
you think they even read the book, or do you think they just get disgusted with it, or why would they
No,
buy a book in the first place?
because they're begging for answers. Things like, think of the 6,942 diet books. It's because we're told, don't trust your own hunger. Don't trust what you think is good for you. You have to listen to the experts. Perfect example. For several years, I did keto and paleo. And maybe that's good for some people, but everybody was telling me that's the only way to go. Well, I have totally screwed up my guts from that.
Oh
I am
no.
better with a lighter, closer to vegetarian lifestyle. But because I was listening to the fads, I did myself some damage. Now I'm unrolling that damage, but it's taken some time. If I had just gone inside and looked at food and seen a salad or a steak and said to myself, which one feels better to me, it would have been the salad. But it was like, oh no, carbs are so bad, I must eat all protein. That's horse hockey. But it's a good example of why you know yourself better than you think you do.
Right. And that kind of brings up to my next question. I was going to ask, my next question was, why do you think most self-help books don't work? And I think you've answered that question. They're not, if I can, would it be safe to say they're not customized to the reader?
More than that, they are written by someone who thinks they have the answers. And I know I don't.
Well, I know that I don't. So, yeah, I mean, it's all the help that I can get. Yeah. So, that's perfect. And we've seen it before. We've seen people buy books, not just to self-help, any book with the best intentions. And what do? They sit on the coffee table to collect dust.
Well, it's like I told you before we came on the air. I take my work very seriously. Me, not so much. I'm as fallible as anybody else.
Well, like I said, Corbie, I've started reading your book, and ladies and gentlemen, I have to highly recommend her book. I will tell you this, ladies and gentlemen. There's a section there, or there's a statement there, should I say? It's called "Think Like a Martian."
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen, let's think about that. I know you're probably scratching your head. Think like a Martian. And even when I first read that, I didn't understand that, but now I do. So, Corbie, I'll let you tell the audience, what did you mean in your book about think like a Martian?
We judge everything from the minute we get up to the minute we go to bed. And when we judge things, we think we know what all the answers are. But a Martian, he's assigned by, the Grand Nagus or whoever, go down on Earth and explore and tell me what you get when you get back. Well, little Zork here doesn't know anything about Earth, but he's got his assignment and he's all excited. So he sees two people. And let's say it's you and me, and you have water coming out of your eyes. And I might say, why are you crying? But Zork would look at you and go, why is there water coming from your eyes? Because he has no idea. And he might be right, because maybe you have allergies, or maybe your contact lenses are bugging you, or maybe you have an emotional situation. It all comes down to what I teach people, the three most important questions in the world. What am I X about? X can be angry, sad, worried, whatever. Why am I X about that? And the question we never ask ourselves, what do I think would happen if I stopped being X about that? When we allow ourselves to look at a situation without preconceived notions,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. Quick example. There was a guy who had a family, a wife and a daughter. He was in a terrible car accident, and even though they did work on it, his face kind of looked like spin art. And he was terribly embarrassed. He'd always walked around kind of like this, but he was still married with kids.
Mm-hmm.
So one night he was putting his daughter to bed, and she grabs his face and smushes it next to hers. And she said, "This would be a great picture, but it would be better if mommy's face were in the picture." Now, old him would have said, "Oh my God, even my daughter thinks I'm ugly." But he had learned to ask the 3 questions. So he just turned it around to her. "Why would it be a better picture if mommy's face were in the picture?" And she looked at him like he was from Mars and said, "Because mommy can't hold the camera still and you take good pictures." Boom.
Oh,
He could have
wow.
been
What a turnaround.
scarred for years if he hadn't asked that question. And then he realized his daughter just saw him still as him. He was talking about he was a good photographer. Always ask the questions. Questions are ways to crystallize what we need to know.
I like that. And like I said, like think like a Martian. Think about someone who would have no clue in like somebody else's world. Don't just judge the visual, I guess you could say, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Don't use past experience to judge your present situation.
I like that saying. Like I said, I'm looking forward to reading the rest of your book.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Corbie. So what inspired you to write a self-help book in the first place? What was your motivation, I should say?
Well, I always knew that I needed to write books. I mean, words are my drug of choice.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do for a living is I am a world famous psychic medium and an intuitive counselor. And people come to me with their situations and we figure out how to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a Madam Hoo-Ha or a Swami Swalanda. It's here are your opportunities and how to grab them. Here's the tough stuff. Here's how to get through it around it. Here's your toolbox. Go rock and roll. I hand you the toolbox. I'm not the repairman. But there were 4 subjects that come up all the time. How to get clear on a subject.
Mm-hmm.
How to simplify their lives. How to go with the flow. How to adapt. And how to deal with stress. So those are the 4 parts of the book. And each part of the book has 4 chapters to look at possibilities in it. Because these were the 4 things that my clients all said, if you wrote a book, boy, would I read it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I chose those.
Absolutely. Well, how did you make sure that your book didn't fall into like the other category? A lot of, the myriad self-help books that we see out there. How did you avoid that?
I self-published. I wanted the book out there. I really did. And I didn't want to have to wait and get rejection after rejection after rejection. So I just did the self-publishing. It's out in Kindle, it's out in paperback. And I also went into the studio and did the audiobook. I mean, theater training at Brown University. I've done voiceovers. And for me, anybody can read a fiction book if you're good with your voice. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at Jennifer Ikeda, who's read A Discovery of Witches, that trilogy, and it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wrote this book and it's nonfiction, your heart's on the page. This is you. So I think that the author, if they have any kind of a voice, should be the one to read the book for the audience. So I did.
That's good. You mentioned self-published. Was that very difficult to self-publish your own work?
Yes and no. It was a lot of work. I had a fabulous editor that I found, good. And she helped me with my other 2 books. I paid, several $1,000s to have 1,000 of them printed. Troy Bookmakers here in Troy, New York, great. But I also put it out for reviews. And I got 2 reviews that were especially good. One of them is from Kirkus Reviews, and the other is from Indie Reader. So the book is, am I a millionaire from it? No. Is it getting out to people? Yes, it is. And it was more important to me to get that book out for people than to make $1 million. Simple as that.
That's awesome. I like hearing that. And I'm sure, I've read your reviews online, and I mean, you've had some awesome reviews. I mean, from a lot of people that you've touched lives on it. In fact, I'm enjoying it too. I told you before the show that I've got a family member I think would really benefit from this as well, to get rid of all the, and I say this myself too. sometimes we get those negative thoughts in. Negative thoughts, either past mistakes or somebody said something or did something to us. And even though it's in the past, it's hard to let go of that voice that says, remember what happened to you? Remember how terrible you felt? Remember how angry that make you? Wish you could just, flip that voice off, basically.
If you got screwed over by Butch in high school and you're still thinking about it, Butch is still putting the screws to you, honey.
Exactly.
You're giving him the power.
You're giving him ammunition. Absolutely.
Yes. So you do have to dump it. But, I do want to tell people, if you buy a book on Amazon, especially if it's self-published, please, my darlings, please, please, please leave a review, because unless you have 50 reviews, Amazon puts you on the back shelf behind the pickles. They don't care. But once you have 50 reviews, people will get to see it more often. So that's why reviews are important.
That's right. So remember that, ladies and gentlemen. So reviews mean a lot. So and I'll definitely be definitely giving you a good review when I finish reading, because it's really just, in the short time that I've been in the book, it's really inspired me. So anyway, a lot of the power of positive thinking, I guess I could say.
Yes. Yes, which I have had to learn through my own life. So yes.
Now, you talked about clarity also. So tell us, why is that important? Clarity.
Think about what your brain has been like during the year of Murder Hornet Bingo and Hold My Beer. Because a lot of us didn't have days that were separate, Tuesday I do this, Friday I do that. It all kind of ran together. So did our brain pan. Okay. We weren't clear on anything because all of our standard ways of doing things were out the window. So I talk about the three-legged stool of clarity. There are three places in your life. If you can get clear on them, you got your life pretty well handled. One of them is getting clear on your purpose.
Okay.
Why y'all here? Getting clear in your relationships, and getting clear with spirit. And when I say clear with spirit, I don't care who you believe in, Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, pagan, Ralph the Wonder Dog, doesn't matter. For me, spirit is knowing somebody up there loves you, wants the best for you, and is willing to work with you in whatever form you see. And if you can get those three legs of your life stool strong, you can handle pretty much anything.
Okay, tell us again, just for those, I didn't catch it either. The three-legged stool of clarity. What are the three legs again?
Clarity of purpose. Why are you here?
Okay.
What do you want to tell God you did when you get back home? Number two, clarity in relationships.
Okay.
And relationships is not only the person you're married to or dating, but it's your milkman, your teacher, the neighbor. It's anybody heart to heart. And the third is getting clear with spirit. Getting that connection up there. Yes. You got those three, you're good.
Okay. Well, that's really important. I've read that too, but I just want to make sure I wanted my clarity.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah. I know I'm not a comedian, so that's why I have this show.
Oh, I am. I have done stand up on You Think a Psychic's Life is Easy. So yes, it's okay. I am funny. I know it.
I will keep my day job, ladies and gentlemen, I promise. Now, listen, when I was also reading in your book, you mentioned simplicity. And so are you talking literally about a real closet, like you're cleaning out your life closet? Or are you talking about just in our mind's closet? Describe what you mean by simplicity and what
your life closet is everything in your life. When I talk about life as a tiny house, one of the problems we have these days is a lot of people are massively in debt because they keep buying things, even if they don't need them. How many wallets do you need? How many copies of Harry Potter in the house? You have 4 kids. They don't all need their copy of Prisoner of Azkaban.
Or knickknacks or whatever it may be. Yeah.
Right. So the example I use in the book is take 20 things, put them on the table, look at them really carefully for 2 minutes, and then put them away. Can you name them? Do you remember why you bought them? No. But choose 5 of the most important things out of that 20, put it on the table for 2 minutes. When I take them away, you can tell me exactly what they were, when you bought them, and why you love them. You should be able to look at everything in your life and know, why do I have this and why do I love it and why is it important? Then you don't trip over things all the time. And that also helps you get clear in the brain pan as well.
That is actually some really good advice. I mean, because unfortunately we are all creatures of habit. I don't say that we're hoarders, but we have all this stuff that we think we can't live without. And
Look,
that's actually good.
I grew up a Jewish American princess in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Daddy was a doctor. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, consumption in the 1960s and 70s. But two things. Number one, my parents had someone to leave these things to.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, people in those days wanted things. Now, I am not where I expected to be at 66. I love my life, but I live in a tiny 864 square foot bungalow in the middle of a hayfield in rural upstate New York. My parents' 2,500 square foot house, I couldn't fit everything in here. So there are certain things I kept because they had deep meaning, but I gave away things like Pennsylvania Dutch dressers, an 1874 marble top dresser, silver platters. I didn't sell them. I gave them to someone that I knew would treasure them, and that family does. Because they're talking about our generation. The kids don't want what we have anymore. The kids are living leaner, especially because they can't afford houses. They can't afford to lug all this stuff around. So they're going to have a simpler life than we will, and they will count more on experiences to take with them than things. And they may have a more not valuable, valued life at the end because they're living it, they're not buying it.
That's really good advice, and I can go one step further. You know, we can acquire all this stuff in our lives, but as I say, you can't take it with you. So you know, you can't. The same way that you came in this world with nothing. So
exactly.
you know, and sometimes, you know, there's some things around here that have sentimental value that I have, but they're little bitty small things, you know. So I try not to let possessions. In fact, I heard a saying, and I don't know who said it, but it was an author or a writer. Someone said a long time ago that they just acquired all this stuff. It just kept acquiring. And the person said, I found out I was no longer owning my things. My things owned me. I'm like, wow.
Exactly the point, Bob.
So they couldn't even live because they had stuff, you know, they had. So when you say cleaning out your closets, I mean, definitely just, you know, if I can use the word downsize, I mean, there's so many things that just holding us back that, you know, I probably go into my closet right now, a storage closet, and think, why am I keeping that? That's been following me around for how many years now? And I look at it one time, I open the closet up and then close it again. Oh, I still got that. So that's good advice, Corbie. Hope everybody else pays attention to that. And I love the example you gave about putting 20 things on the table, look at it for 2 minutes, and then look away and see if you can name it. If you can't name it all, then there's your answer.
One of my favorite things is you put things away. If you haven't come back to it in a year and you can't think immediately of a place you would use it, out the door.
I agree.
Out the door. It's like I did a pandemic pantry because I just heard in my head, December 2019, you are going to want to have food in the house. And we were packed. But there was a lot of stuff that we don't normally use, but we had it in case. Well, as of April, I said, we're good to go. And I went through and I took literally hundreds of dollars of food to the local food bank.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Okay. Because I didn't need it. I could downsize because now I can go to the store safely. And there were people who could not afford food. So I was what I call walking kindness. I didn't worry about, you know, how much it was, whatever. Here, I cannot use it. Please take it. That's the real value.
Yeah, and that makes you feel really good when you're helping somebody like that. So,
oh yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you. You're talking about cleaning out the closet. We're also, you know, talking about you know, a cleansing of the mind as well, if I could use that term. But how would you clean out happiness? Is there such thing as cleaning out happiness too?
Well, it's cleaning out what prevents you from getting happy. And it's a matter of understanding that you got to find happiness with what you have right now. And there's a chapter in the book that I talk about the fact that I love to play with food.
I do
Cooking is
too.
therapy for me. And one of the things that I do is I don't slavishly go with a recipe. A lot of the stuff in our freezer, because I always load the freezer for when I'm gone, he should not go out and eat crap, is beef TR, pork TR. What's TR? Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt said, do what you can with what you have where you are. So that's what I do with the recipes. So the things that I talk about: be in the moment, attitude of gratitude, Martian curiosity, no rules, just right, thinking outside the box, and don't be attached to outcomes. If you look at all of these things, they're going to show you how to find happiness wherever you are. Now, I'm going to use a really tough example. All right.
Okay.
I've done the cancer dance 3 times. Notice, I don't say I fought cancer, because what you fight fights back. And I don't say that I'm a survivor, because I do a lot more than hang on by teeth and toenails. I am a cancer dancer. I found out how graceful I could be under pressure. I avoided getting my toes stepped on, and I got off the dance floor in one piece.
Good.
So my 3rd dance with cancer, I was only married to Carl for 1.5 years. And it was a second primary, which turns the danger clock back to 0. But the doctor said, okay, 3 strikes, you're out. We're taking the rack, and we're taking your ovaries, and you're going from this Dolly Parton figure, I literally was, brunette Dolly Parton, to a fat fire plug with permanent side effects in 3 weeks. Suck it up. Now, I went home and cried for 24 hours. I'm normal.
Yeah.
I was 49. It was pretty young to be kicked off into menopause, but I said, I know my rules. I have to find 3 reasons to be okay with this. Don't care how stupid they were. So I said, number 1, you don't have them, you can't get cancer there. That's a good thing. Number 2,
well, that's good. Yeah.
Yep, the top half is not going to get slammed in the refrigerator door at the doctor's, and everyone listening knows exactly what I'm talking about.
There's a compliment in there somewhere, isn't there?
And okay, implants, I'll be perky till I'm 93. I can do this. So I walked
like
out of well, it's how I got through it. I walked out of Massachusetts General Hospital after a double mastectomy and reconstruction in 3 days, shopped for a bathing suit in 5. That was in 2004. Here I am, still clean in 2021.
Great.
It changed how I viewed myself. And it taught me that I was worth a lot more than what I looked like. And that totally morphed how I did my work. And that's why it's one of the reasons that this book had to be written. Because when you've walked that fire, you need to turn around and you need to say to others, you can walk the fire too. You really can.
Wow. That is an amazing story, Corbie. In fact, that's really good advice, because I'm thinking, sometimes when something bad does happen to us, I mean, for example, I'll just use one of the life's bad things. When a person gets fired from a job, suddenly you're without a job. And you said, see if you can name 3 positive things out of that. Looking for a new career, maybe go back to school now, blah, blah,
right.
Find
new
some
career.
positive.
Maybe, look, that happened to me. My last job was working for a lawyer who just got a brain tumor, and therefore saw all kinds of things in what I was doing that she didn't like, fired me, refused to even sign off for unemployment for me. What that did is that pushed me to start looking at doing this work, which I did while I was working for an old boss, 70 hours a week as an executive recruiter. But once I knew I could make a living doing the intuitive counseling work that I love, I left that executive recruiter thing, and I've never looked back. If I had stuck with that lawyer job, or if I had gotten unemployment, I might not have pushed myself as hard as I did. So to this day, that was scary, but it was one of the best things that happened to me, because it pushed me to go for what I really wanted.
And I've always heard too, Corbie, that if you enjoy what you're doing, it's really not a job at that point.
No, look, I work 6 days a week, 14 hours a day. I read about 1,000 people a year. Before last year, I was on the road 45 weekends a year, 50,000 miles a year on the car. My nickname was the Travel Channel. Now, this is an example of how the universe can work with you. July of 2019, all of a sudden, I got a herniated disc and pinched nerves. Honey, that makes having triplets look like a tea party in terms of pain.
Bet.
Now, I'm over it now, but it took a few months, and the doctor said, you're off the road. You can't do the 10 hours of driving in the car anymore. You can't do the load in and load out. So I knew I needed to take my business and move it all online. But as a result, I'd been working on that for several months before we were all in lockdown. So the universe had protected my back and got me online, and I'm still online. Will I do some local shows about 2 hours away? Yes. But I'm off the road. But that is what actually brought my third book up, which is You've Got the Magic, Who Needs a Genie? Because there is no
title.
Thank you. I have fun with titles.
Can you show that again for our audience? I want to see it again. The name of it is You've Got the Magic, Who Needs a Genie? I love that.
And it is specifically written. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of holistic expos and psychic fairs out there, but most of the people there don't know how to run a business. Because of my background, I have straddled the twin mountains of business think and WikiWoo. Now, there are 6, 7, 8 billion people in the world. I can't read them all. So I am more than happy to share every single thing that I learned from 18 years on the road for other people. Wow. Go do. And again, it's the universe said, you're not going to do it. Here, write the book, make it available for other people. And I listen to what the universe says. Sometimes we argue, but most of the time the universe is right. And I become what I call a leaf, not a salmon. The salmon fights to get somewhere and dies. The leaf thought it was going here. Oh, I guess I'm going there. But the leaf gets to the bottom of the river in one piece.
That's true. That's a good analogy there too. So, Corbie, what are some other ways that a person? We talked about the stuff they can get rid of, and we talked about how they can kind of start thinking positive, get rid of the negative. Is there any other ways a person can simplify their life? Yeah,
there are 4 kinds of people that I talk about. There are the thing people, the collectors, and they're the ones that they have to get the latest TV. They have to go and find whatever this exclusive is. They have to always buy from McDonald's if there's an exclusive cup, whatever. They collect.
The grass is always greener.
Right. I call them toys people.
Toys.
Then there are Rolodex. Yes, they always have to have their toys. Then there are Rolodex people. Now, I almost have to change that because Rolodex are now extinct. And for those who are listening and don't know what a Rolodex is, it used to be this literal circular card file on your desk with everybody important, their names and how to find them and what they're. And the bigger your Rolodex, the more important you were. So these are people collectors. Then there are the been there, done that people. They always have to be the ones, they went to 87 Grateful Dead concerts. They have to be the first ones in for every new restaurant. But it's like they're notching on the bedpost. They're not enjoying it while they're doing it. It's just that they did it and now they can boast about it.
Yeah. They try to talk to everybody else. Yeah.
Right. My favorite people are the connection people. It is their experiences in life that make a difference. For them, instead of saying, I just went to the new Swedish restaurant, a big thing for them would be buying a couple of sandwiches and sitting down with a homeless person and having lunch with them and getting to know who they are. And these are hugely important. One of the most profound experiences I ever had was when I was 7. And my family always went to a restaurant called the Calico Kitchen every Friday night, and everybody knew Dr. Dorkin. And this was in the early to mid 60s, before there were a lot of homeless and panhandlers. But in the vestibule was a guy who had his cap out. And Dad sent us in, sit down, and he said, I'll be right back. And he went. I saw him pick the man up, talk to him, take him over to the little counter coffee area and talk to the waitress. And he came and sat down. And I said, Daddy, what did you do? He said, well, the man wanted money, but I didn't want to give him money because he might use it to drink, and that's bad. But I walked him over to the waitress and I said that he was to order anything he wanted to eat and I would pay for it.
Oh, that's awesome.
But Daddy, he's dirty. Why didn't you get him a sandwich and just have him eat outside? And he looked at me and said, honey, I could have done that, but this way he knows that he's an important human being. I gave him his dignity back. And that has stayed with me since I was 7. And that has informed so much of what I do. So that's an example of connection people, where an experience is the treasure, not the sandwich, not the restaurant, but the experience of what I learned.
And knowing you help somebody, that's just, that
was my father.
That is an amazing story. That would be good for counting me to learn more about that and do that more.
Dad is the one who I dedicated Clean Out Your Life Closet to. If you go into the very first page, you see the two of us.
Yep.
Wait a minute. There it is.
I can see it. Yeah.
And yes, I'm showing it to people who are watching. Because he was my best friend. And so he was the one that taught me to love words. My first book was going to be for him.
That's all. Like, from what you've told me, just that story alone, he was a very, very wise man. So
he was a good man.
We would do well to learn more, and I'm talking about myself as well, to follow that example. So again, people, I can just say, people mean more than things. I mean, things come and go. Yes. Things can break. Things can be sold, but a person, you can't put a price on a life.
Things don't have souls. People do.
Exactly. And I think about lots of times, and recently, my grandmother, now she's passed now, but she was in a nursing home. And my family and I tried to see her as often as we could. But the nurses told me sadly that she's lucky because there's so many people there that they get dumped there and nobody comes to see them. I'm like, that is awful. So I didn't mean to change the subject, but I was just kind of drawing a parallel.
No, I agree. Look, I don't have kids. So if my husband dies before me, who will care? Now I'm lucky because of who I am, and I've reached out to others. I have what I call my family of choice, and my nieces by adoption. And so probably people would come visit me, but you have to pay it forward first. You really do. And when you can make those connections, you will find that all the things that you passed up, you're glad you did. The people are more important.
Absolutely. In your book, though, there you have an adaptability section. And you talked about perfection in your adaptability section. So why is perfection, why is that a problem?
It's a problem because perfect destroys good. And in that chapter, I specifically talk about my parents' marriage, which was very bad, and how my father made it better with my stepmother, whom he married after my mother died. My mother was a chain smoker and died at 59 of a heart attack.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
So if my parents hadn't been working on being perfect, the villain in the piece was my grandmother, who had a specific idea of who her son should marry. And my mother was not it. And my mother she never forgave.
Conflicts.
And it ruined my parents' marriage. And talk about irony. My grandmother died at 84 and my mother died 6 weeks later at 59. She never had a chance to be my father's wife without the shadow of my grandmother. But it's why the marriage with it's why the marriage with my stepmother Shirley was so much better for Dad. And Shirley was able to be a fabulous stepmother for me. I adored her. So she didn't have the burden. The other thing is why perfect isn't what you think it is. And that was an example of when I was really, really sick on one of my birthdays. And normally my birthday is a big, we go out to dinner, we have a wonderful time. And I was sick and I had a writing deadline and forget it. So I decided that perfection could be flexible. And it can mean considering other items and changing course. You don't have to keep it right there. It means giving attention to what really matters. And frankly, what really mattered was my feeling better. You can find perfection in the tiniest moments. That was a day when it was crazy raining outside and then turning to sleet and then turning to snow. And I was in my nice warm house, cuddled by my cats, and it was a moment of perfection. It's the willingness to fail fast and get things out of the way. Fine, I really didn't want this. Well, fine, next. And the last thing is Perfection comes from imperfection. When you allow yourself to change plans and not say, I have to be here, things do well. Perfection out of imperfection, all of a sudden, I get the back injury. My entire business is upended. Go with the flow, baby. Adapt, change it. And now my business is perfect because I'm too tired at 66 to go traveling anymore, but I still have my solid business and I got all my cats with me too.
You still got the cats, all right.
26-pound Maine Coon, honey. Yes, he's a big boy.
Wow. I had a Maine Coon a long time ago. His name was Max, and he was an ornery little cuss too. I mean, he kept me on my toes.
Prawn's nickname is High Commander because he runs the house. He really does.
I'm gonna tell you, we had, I can't remember how the cats were, like 3 or 4, but Max, the Maine Coon, he ruled the roost. Absolutely. Yes. I mean, and he would like, I mean, I guess I can use the word bully. I mean, he'd like, there were a few cats that would run from him because they were scared of him because they knew that he was the alpha male. So. Yeah,
Prawn is like that. For people who don't know what a Maine Coon is, if you look at Star Trek Discovery and there's that big brown tabby cat named Grudge, that's a Maine Coon.
Yes.
And Maine Coons are little dogs in cat suits. They're funny. They're clowns. They're very talkative and they adore people.
Yeah, I loved my Max, and when I lost him, it broke my heart. But he was around for a long time, and like I said, he didn't just want his rights; he demanded his rights many times. So from us, from the humans.
Prawn just looks at you like, and are you going to do what you know you need to do, or do I have to show you? It's like, oh, sure, sorry, okay, Prawn, anything you need. So.
Yeah, you also in the book, if I remember right, you talked about like going with the flow, but you said there are also places where you should stand your ground. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. If going with the flow, you wanted to go to a Thai restaurant, but everybody else is on Japanese, you'll find something there. But for instance, if everybody in your family believes in this version of politics, and you belong to the other side, you don't go with the flow there.
Right.
Because unfortunately, in this country, politics is now very much like the blue and the gray.
It's polarizing too.
It's very polarizing. If you have a friend who skirts the law and, says, look, do me a favor, I got to go in and get a couple of bottles of booze for my kid's graduation. And he's only 17, but you don't do that because that's illegal. Right. Those are the times when you stand your ground.
So like, don't compromise, basically.
Don't compromise your own ethics, morals. That's what it is. That's very different from, well, I wanted the Subaru Legacy and my husband wanted an Outback, so we compromised on a Forester. That's a little different.
I've heard it too, where it's peer pressure. Especially when you're in high school and college, maybe a group of people wants to go to XYZ place, but one person, maybe it goes against their beliefs. So they really don't want to do it, but yet
that's right.
I don't want to say no, I'll be the outsider. So
trust me, being the outsider will be better for you. And, you don't always have to convince other people. If someone is telling you all the things that they think that you don't think, just look at them and say, thank you for sharing. You may think that if you wish. You do not have to disagree, but you don't have to buy into it either.
Like the old saying, we can agree to disagree.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. But usually politics is probably not something you want to bring up at the dinner table on Thanksgiving. So that's probably
not unless your entire family believes one way and then y'all can talk about it. But it's that's what it is you don't compromise your ethics or your morals. Compromise works when everybody's trying to get to a certain point and everybody agrees that getting to a point is good.
And that's stand your ground, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Also in the book, you mentioned stress, and I talked with him online, and even here, I get stressed out. In fact, I'll tell you a little personal story. Years and years ago, I was at another job, not where I'm working now, but many years ago. And there was a lot of things going on that just stressed me out. and I would
Mhm.
wake up in the morning in a bad mood. By the time I left work, I was in this rage, So I mean, I was just full of stress. I even had to go on high blood pressure. They always say that your mind can tell on your body, and
Yes,
it took me getting
absolutely.
away from that job. In fact, the doctor even said, "Bob, no job is worth your health." And so
He's
when that
absolutely
job
right.
ended, that was great. So you say that stress can be a complicated friend. So can you
Mhm.
elaborate on that? Being a complicated friend.
It's because not all stress is bad. There's eustress, EU stress, that's good stress, and there's distress, which is bad. Good
Hmm.
stress is when you're about to go on stage and sing. Good stress is when you're taking your SATs and you're ready to rock and roll with it. It's when you go in for the final interview and you know you're going to nail the job. Those are all things where it's good to be
Oh,
revved up.
that's good. Hmm.
Distress is always saying yes when you should say no. It's always overthinking things and not trusting your own judgment. It's promising too much. It's overscheduling yourself. Those are all things that give you chronic stress that you don't need to do. And that's where you have to learn. There are specific things about stress. I talk about stress as a shot across the bow and stress as mission creep. The shot across the bow is when something happens and it's like, boom, it hits you in the face. With me, I use the um, example of when I was doing a big event and I didn't really have time to eat, but it was at a cafe bakery. So I grabbed a couple of their
Hmm.
raspberry bars, which were high fat, high sugar, wolfed them down. And then within 20 minutes, my heart was hammering, my blood pressure was up.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
I should have known better because fat and sugar like that under stress kicks it up. So now
Hmm.
I never let that happen. That was a one and done. Mission creep is the example I use. Is there's a woman who loved to knit, and somebody saw that and said, "Wow, that's really great. Could you make a couple of baby things for my store?" And she
Hmm.
did. And somebody from the local uh, PBS station said, "Wow, those are great. Could you make some for our pledge drive?" And she said yes to that. And then someone at the TV station said, "One of our underwriters makes this kind of wool and this kind of pattern. We want you to do it with this kind of wool and this kind of pattern." So it went
Oh.
from I
Hmm.
knit when I want and it's relaxing to so many people demanding that she do it a certain
Just
way
adding
that,
up. Hmm.
right, that she finished that and she put away the knitting needles. She never went back to it because knitting had become
Oh.
toxic.
Mm.
So that's why saying no is a really important idea. You know, a lot of people don't know how to say no, don't know how to draw their boundaries, which is why I've made up this card. No is a fabulous idea.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, look at that very carefully because I need it, and
Yes.
maybe some of you watching need that. Look at no is a fabulous idea. It's okay to say no, right, Corbie?
When you say no to others, you're saying yes to yourself.
Hmm.
You know, one of the things that I do when I do a big holistic expo, sometimes there's a person who will lean over the table and say, "Well, why did you tell me something that you couldn't know? And if you're real good and you're right, I'll have a reading with you." I just look at them and smile and say, "I'm sorry. I don't roll over and fetch either." And I turn my back and they don't get a reading.
Love
Why
it.
do I have to perform for them? Honey, I've been doing this since I was 18 and I'm 66 and I have to prove myself to nobody.
Hmm. Yeah,
But if
that's
you're
right.
thinking, "Oh my God, I have to say yes to him because I have to prove myself," no, 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 no. Don't do that.
Mm-mm.
Boundaries are important.
Unfortunately, a lot of people are people pleasers. They
Mhm.
put themselves or put other people above themselves, and they're miserable. And in fact, I was like that at one time. I'd always like, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, or I don't want to be, but then all of a sudden I'm like, I have no free time. I have no time to read
Also,
and do things I want to do.
what you do does not hurt their feelings. They choose to be hurt by what you do. That's their choice.
Hmm.
Okay. We're
Absolutely.
not responsible for everybody else. That's why when someone says to me, "You make me so mad," I say, "No, you are angry at my actions, but I'm not making you mad. That's your choice." And when you realize that you can let go of all of that responsibility other people are trying to throw on you, you will be able to breathe, baby. You really will. It makes a huge difference.
Wow. You said one thing earlier. You were talking about
Mhm,
stress, and
mhm.
I'm guilty of this. I'm putting myself out there,
Yeah.
overthinking. And I do. I'm a terrible thing at overthinking. Okay, if I do this, this is going to happen, then that's going to happen, then that's going to happen. So I'm already in my mind thinking it's going to go this, this. But usually 99 out of 100 times, the worst case scenario doesn't happen. So
That's the law. Have you ever heard the lawnmower story, Bob?
Lawnmower story. No, you have to tell me.
Okay. You got Hank and Steve.
Okay.
And Steve's walking over to Hank's place because he needs to borrow the lawnmower. And on the way, Steve's going, yeah, I hope he doesn't mind. I mean, the last time I borrowed something from him, it broke. But it wasn't my fault it broke. He doesn't maintain his stuff right. And so if this breaks, why the hell should I fix it? And, you know, he goes and he knocks on Hank's door, and Hank opens the door and says, Steve says, you can keep your fucking lawnmower, and stomps away. And Hank's going, what? Steve overthought the whole lawnmower thing.
He had this whole script in his mind.
Right. Right. So that's the lawnmower story.
Wow. So tell us again, what are the different types of stress again? Kind of review that again.
Okay. Eustress, EU.
Stress. That's what you call
EU stress.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
Eustress is good stress. It's the getting yourself ready to do your very best job in something that's important to you and you love.
Okay.
Distress is taking on responsibilities that aren't yours out of guilt or fear, or overthinking things, or trying to always have all the right answers, or berating yourself if something is not perfect. That's stress. Mm-hmm. And that gives you high blood pressure, strokes, cancer, depression, anxiety, you name it.
Absolutely.
So then there's, how do you recognize this? Stress is the shot across the bow when something serious happens that is a one and done lesson, or stress as mission creep. And this is what happens when you don't say no when you need to.
Okay.
That's what you got to watch for.
Well, I'm going to bring up the cover of your book again, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that didn't see the beginning of the show, this is the book that Corbie wrote, and I am in the middle of reading it, and I am enjoying it. It's called Clean Out Your Life Closet, and I think that could be a good piece of advice for everybody. And so while I got the book put up here, Corbie, what would you say to someone right now who orders, your book, and what would you say to someone who's about to open this book? Any advice that you'd tell them or in advance? Or
yes, read it, enjoy it, take what is useful and dump the rest. It is not an all or nothing book. And trust me, you are your own best expert. You will know which parts of the books work for you and which don't. And I'm fine with either way.
Okay. And just, you kind of touched on it at the beginning, but let's just kind of go into it in more depth as we have the cover up. At the end of each chapter, you have some questions for the reader. Yes. And so kind of tell us what that's about.
Okay. At the end of each chapter, I have given you what I call the adventure pages, where you can answer the questions based on your own life. For instance, in Why Perfect Isn't What You Think It Is, the questions are, has perfect been a friend or a foe in your life? Why? When did the search for perfection stop you from doing something important? How so? Notice you're not going to find the answers to that in my words. You have to go into your own life. And so you will use your own life to teach yourself what you want, what you don't want, and how to get your life to change to become a life where you get to get up every morning. You don't have to get up every morning. That's the secret.
Now, see, I like that. For example, like even a job. I mean, if it's a job, you like, you don't have to go to work. You get to go to work,
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
Man, that just talking to you today just changed my whole thinking too. So I can imagine what it's going to be like when I read the rest of the book. So we need some more positive thinkers, because sometimes, I get to be, use the term Debbie Downer. So it's like, So in a world it's so fast paced right now. It's just very easy to just get caught up in everything, And so that's really, really good advice. Just, cleaning out not only our mental closet, but our physical closets as well.
Yes.
When you started writing this book, Corbie, about how long did it take you to finish it from beginning to end? Do you remember?
About 4 months. That's all.
4 months. Oh, wow.
Because I wanted so much to get that out there.
You had the passion. You had a passion
Mhm.
for it.
Big time.
So, wow. And so now we talked mostly about cleaning out your life's closet, but the other books you've read, kind of, can you go over
Yep.
those again?
You've got The Psychic Yellow Brick Road, How to Find the
Psychic Yellow
Real
Brick Road.
Wizards and Avoid the Flying Monkeys. The tagline on this is good psychic guidance is art, don't settle for a forgery. This does not tell you how to be a psychic, but it tells you how to choose a really good intuitive counselor, psychic medium to stay safe, what questions to ask, what you shouldn't ask, when you should run, because this one is not honest. This is a
Okay.
book. I don't care if you never come to me. If you read this book, no matter who you go to, you're going to be safe. And the third one is if you are any kind of a light worker, holistic healer, vendor, you've got the magic. Who needs a genie? I'm trying to get it so it isn't
I really like the
shiny.
title of that book. The
Right.
title itself is intriguing, you know.
Yep. It's everything that I know from 18 years on the road as a holistic road warrior. And I'm happy to share all my business knowledge with you.
Well, great. You know, you mentioned one thing on your website, and it's just that one is really telling to me. It says, this is you talking. You said, you are your own best expert. And I was like, that is so true. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know,
And we need to
okay.
remember that, because when we think we're not, that's when we buy all the stupid self-help books and then we leave them on the shelf.
Well, and this too, and I'll tell off on myself again. I think a lot of people kind of we worry what other people think of us. Sometimes we think, okay, what is, and I think that is such
Yes.
a thing. You know, it's like, well, I want to do that so bad, but what will they think about that? And so I've heard so many people say, you know, you hear on TV all the time, probably you too, is like, who cares what other people think? Just do what you want to do. So,
Yep. You don't want me to do that? Thank you for sharing. You may think the end if you wish. I'm out of here. So,
oh, wow. Well, Corbie, I really, really appreciate you being here. I've learned a lot again, just starting your book. I hate to put it down even. So, you know,
thank you. That's very kind.
so I will definitely read it. Again, I have a family member I know that will really, really get a lot of use out of this too. So in different ways. And
Excellent.
again, and I told my audience this, I like the interaction. It's almost like that Corbie is there with you. I mean, because she's answering the right questions, and you know, you're your best judge. And so I really, really, I can actually say I highly recommend Corbie. So I'm glad you wrote that. And that's definitely a self-help book that will not collect dust.
Thank you. I love hearing that.
Okay. Well, Corbie, I don't have anything else. Did you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I've had a great time. All the books are available at Amazon. Go grab them at Amazon. All of them are available paperback and Kindle, and Life Closet is available as an audiobook.
Okay. Well, remember that, ladies and gentlemen. So get your copy today. And again, Corbie, thank you for being here on the Van Buren Variety Show. And we look forward to seeing future works from you as well.
Thank you. It was a great time, Bob.
Okay. Have a great evening. And ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, our time is up. Hope you had a great time here on the Van Buren Variety Show. I know I have. It was a great topic and a great guest. And but make sure you like and subscribe, because next week, another guest, another topic. It could be a hobby, it could be a profession, special interest, could be some entertainment. You never know. And like I said, the show may be expanding pretty soon. So there may be more than one episode during the week eventually. So I'm talking to some people right now about that. So make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And that way you'll get all the updates from this channel. So in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great week. I've enjoyed it. I hope you have too. This is Bob Van Buren for the Van Buren Variety Show. Have a great evening, everyone. Good night.